Hello everyone and welcome back to the next episode of the Road to FIDE Master series, in which I will analyze the round number 2 from the Chess Eagles Chess Festival, in which I got paired against Dmitry Anishkevich. As you can tell, the rating difference is still a big one, over 300 rating points. However, my opponent also was an experienced player with a great past with much higher rating. So comparing that with the fact that he is a solid player, experienced player with a knight f3 as his main weapon in his repertoire, I wanted to spice things up from the beginning, but I had only like 5 minutes to prepare before the game. Did I manage to find something extra? Let's see. So, my opponent, as I've said, opted for knight f3. I decided to reply with d5, c4, d4, which you may not see from me that often, but it was with the idea of pushing g5 as of now. If I knew how to put the exclamation marks next to the move in the analysis on chess.com, I would do it straight away because it's such a powerful move. I found it by mistake some time ago, and now I thought, okay, maybe I can try to use that against this specific opponent. As crazy as this move looks, it actually scores amazingly, even, or I should say especially, within the masters group, let's say, on the Lichess database, because practically it creates so much problems for the opponent. The main reason for it is that after knight g5 I am playing e5, I am getting the whole center for myself, the knight is under the attack. Also with the e5 move I am pressurizing the b4 pawn, so on top of taking over the center I might actually be able to get the pawn back, so no worries whatsoever and an amazing position. So that's the whole idea behind it. Obviously there are plenty of moves that white can try now. Theory, so h3, g3, d3 maybe not actually, but like queen a4 I guess, maybe few other lines, and bishop b2 for sure is one of those hitting this pawn. But d3 that my opponent chose, I haven't seen in like top 5 lines of the Lichess opening book, and I during the game obviously was surprised by it, but at the same time it was a nice surprise because I knew that against all the main moves black is scoring amazingly. So after this move, which is not a main one, so perhaps it's not a good one, I should be scoring even better. So that's what I thought, and I said, okay, let's go for it. So I pushed g4, I pushed e5, and as you can tell, Ivalbar already likes my position a lot, and I liked it too. And after a3, which I expected, I decided to continue with the move that I saw in some of the lines, which is a5, simply trying to hit the b4 pawn, because if the b pawn is pushed, I now have the c5 square, perhaps for my knight to jump to in the later stages of the game. However, it was at this point when I remembered the game. I'm not sure if you know it, but I saw it once somewhere on YouTube, and that one man in the history of chess played his first 17 moves only with pawns, and he won such game, and it was, let's say, his Immortal. So at this point on move number 7, when I was thinking about my choice what to do, I came up with the idea that okay, now that's the time for my Immortal with the pawn pushes. So instead of trying to think about optimal choices, I started to think about, okay, in which variation it will be more natural to me to play only with pawns. And because of that, and I wanted to try out the a4 move at first, and also it's like a very good move because it's taking away the b3 square for the opponent's pieces. Also it's taking away the a4 possibility for him as well. I just didn't like the fact that after g3 my opponent will be able to develop his bishop to the diagonal and at least have this one active piece, because what I wanted to achieve by those pawn pushes was as little activity for my opponent as possible. And obviously I was thinking about those pawn pushes, so I wanted, okay, maybe f5 will be nice. Maybe in here I can push c5 or something. But because c5 is played with quite a nice line, an idea of rook a7, b6, and then trying to lift the rook anyway on the 7th rank, and then try to push with the h pawn, f pawn, e pawn, whatever, something like it. But the problem is that due to all those pawn pushes, actually white can try to fight with those pawns. Like h3 move was very annoying because I don't really want to push h5, because after take and the spin I would not be able to retake with the h pawn anyway, and f takes g4 does not look promising as well, because I am now giving away all those squares for the opponent's pieces, so I didn't quite like it either. And for those reasons, specific ones, I decided against pushing a4, even though itself in isolation it was a good try. I just didn't know what to do against g3, even though, as you can tell, Iverbar still likes my position. Perhaps now it would be the time for me to not push any pawn any further, but play knight d7, knight c5, or actually maybe not push f5 but h5 immediately. Maybe I had my chance, guys. Maybe I had my chance. Anyway, I blew that away, and in the game I opted for the b6 move. The point being that thanks to that I will be able to place my bishop on the long diagonal before my opponent will do so, and with that I am keeping my hopes for completely closing the any counterplay from the opponent. The problem with this move, however, is that after a4, f5, bishop a3, finally I will have to push the pawn, I guess. Obviously, still I was hoping to get to at least double digits, but as you can tell, we are on the move number 8. I mean, I've played 8 moves, so I have 2 more to make, and the problem was that, okay, I can try c5, and it's actually quite an okay move. But after bc6, I cannot really play any more pawn moves, because those pawns are nowhere to go to. Those pawn pushes are like aimless, and h pawn with things going on the queen side is not that great either. So I decided to, okay, maybe it's not my immortal time, maybe I will have such possibility in the future too. So after bishop a3, I just simply developed knight to d7, saying, alright, for this game it's 8 pawn moves, maybe in the future I will have more. Anyway, that's just the fun fact that I wanted to share with you. But the game itself, as you can tell, is really going my way. I don't have any problems whatsoever, even though I, let's say, abandoned the idea of moving the pieces because of the activity, because of the space advantage that I've gotten, and knight on d2 is passive, all the other pieces are passive too, so I'm happy. My opponent tried knight b3, which is logical, trying to push c5, opening up just a little bit on the queen side for white, but then I took on a3 and played queen e7 in order to cover this square anyway. And after knight c2, knight f6, queen d2, I was a little bit stuck of what to do, because bishop b7 is the move that you would be playing within split of a second in the blitz game, bullet game, maybe even rapid game, and so on. I was just unsure, first of all, where to castle, or should I castle, if the bishop to b7 is a move that is essential for me as of now, or maybe I can wait a little bit for it. So those were my questions. Also, I was unsure about the queen g5 possibility, hitting the pawn, so keeping a bishop a little bit longer here on the c8 square felt like an okay choice. Only later in the future variations I spotted the idea that after rook g8, queen f5, I can perhaps just try to drop back the bishop and try to hunt for the queen. Maybe it would be successful, maybe not, but the point is that after queen d2 I decided to play a move that I once more like very much. So this game, somewhere in between, it was not about winning, it was about having fun, because I played king to f7, a move that I very much like anytime. I don't care that Stockfish does not like it, I'm fine with it. The point is that with the king a little bit higher up the board, this f5 pawn and at the same time this queen g5 move should not be so worrying, because maybe I will even play king e6, because why not, right? Okay, maybe I'm joking. I'm not sure if king e6 is a desired move, because maybe knight d4 might happen with all the knight sacrifice, pawn taking, and the king's problem, but as you can tell, king e6 is playable, right? I'm not losing. So that was my crazy idea for the game, let's say. Anyway, king f7 was on the board. My opponent did not play queen g5 yet. He opted for simply long castle, which is natural. Now I have played bishop b7. And after e3, this was the first moment when I started to have less fun, and I had to calculate a little bit of the variations too. Because what's the problem? The problem is that with the king on f7, with the opponent trying to open up the position, he might be it might be possible for him to open up the position, then find spaces for his pieces, then try to activate them. And if I will not play it out correctly in such a dynamic position, within like 3, maybe 5 moves, I might be without the initiative with the king on f7. So that's why I felt like this moment is a critical one, and I had to come up with a good enough solution that will be good enough for me. One of the moves I was considering was knight to c5, with the idea that I am hitting the b3 knight and a4 pawn. So for that reason, the best way for opponent to continue would be to take. And after bc5, I was happy with the fact that I am overprotecting the d4 pawn, so I should not be that much worried about position being too open. But at the same time, if the position will be closed, how am I going to win this game? Because my opponent can just simply, I don't know, play king b2 and stay on the first and second rank, and I was unsure whether or not I will be able to break through. So I didn't want to take that risk, and then thankfully I'm very happy with the move I've spotted, because I've played c5. And c5 move is similar in terms of the nature of the idea, because if my opponent ever considered this took and that move, first point is that this pawn is actually undefendable, but I didn't even think about it that way, because my point was that if I now try to go for knight c5, the position on the queen side would not be so closed, and that's why I like this idea more, and only because of that reasoning I came up with the c5 move. And on top of that, I spotted that the a4 pawn is hanging, and then I had to obviously calculate the sharp variations that might have occurred, which is ed4, bishop a4, d5, bishop b3, e takes f6, queen f6, and then some move like d4, I guess, in order to stop this pressure. But then I thought, okay, even though the position has opened, even though my king is nearly in the center, and it may seem like I've lost grip of the situation because opponent has central pawns, with one of them being a passer, I felt like my initiative on the queen side would be still superior, and I had to evaluate that from the distance. And when I was happy with that position, and I decided that c5 at this point will be a very, very good choice, because if my opponent takes bc, then I'm happy with the opening of the position. If my opponent does not do that, then I kept the position a little bit closed, at the same time in a way that maybe later will be easy for me to break through, because after knight c5, bc5, I was unsure about it. Here I was more hopeful. I'm not sure if I'm talking too much, but I wanted to explain it very well to you guys. Anyway, my opponent as of now decided to not take on c6, but rather on d4 first, and I was not too sure about this variation with queen f4, because even though I might have a possibility like this to exchange, and obviously I should be just be crushing and be better and so on, still the structure is symmetrical. Still I don't have a clear weakness to play on, and even though I should be clearly winning, I thought like, okay, maybe this experienced player will somehow survive with knight e1, knight d2, and just, you know, staying. So I decided that I want to keep my queens on the board, so I took with c pawn. And after rook e1 with the pin on the e5, I just decided to play queen d6. And now it's the time for my opponent to finally blunder, let's say, because even though in the opening I myself felt like I crushed him, to be honest, later on from the move like number 9 to this point, he played a very good game, fighting for the activity as much as possible. But thankfully I was trying to do it to not give him this activity, and I succeeded. and that's why queen g5 was a logical attempt from my opponent, but was not a good move overall, because queen g5 was played, and this is the moment when I've told you guys before I was trying to make this idea work. So rook g8, queen f5, bishop c8, with the ideas of jumping somewhere with the knight and then getting the queen. Now the problem, however, is with the fact that knight jump would mean that the e5 pawn might be hanging, and once again I couldn't figure out how to do it, how to win this. Then I spotted the idea of h6, trying to catch the queen from the other side, and it might actually be working maybe. Although f4, here, maybe queen is surviving, once again opening up the kingside situation a little bit. So with the king there, I was never sure if I want to do it. So I was calculating it for quite a bit, and then I said to myself, wait, I don't really have to give away the f-pawn. All I can do is just simply play f4. I was not considering this move for the most part of the game, because oftentimes it would just give away the e4 square for the opponent's pieces, but the point is that there is no piece to be placed there from the opponent's perspective, or at least not efficiently. And then simply, slowly, I can try to think about placing one of the rooks to g5 and then trying to play this h6, rook g5 ideas and so on. So with that, I felt like queen is nearly trapped already, and I should be winning. That was my assumption. So even though just 3 moves ago after e3 I was unsure if I am still that much better, at this point I once again felt I should be alright, and that's because the queen g5 was really a practical mistake. My opponent then played queen h6. I don't really understand it. I decided to continue with my idea, which was rook g8, followed by rook g6, by rook g8, rook g5, rook h5, something along the lines of such maneuver in order to get the queen on the h file. My opponent played h3. I played the g3, not allowing to open anything, and as you can tell, it's a complete disaster for the opponent. All the pieces are passive, all the position is closed, queen is stuck, and I should be winning. My opponent tried to at least develop the light square bishop, so he took on g3 and then played bishop e2 with the hopes of giving a check and then nothing. Because I just simply took a pawn, he gave a check, I went away, and I asked, so what? Maybe your queen will be surviving, but I have a pawn advantage, tremendous activity, a passer that will be a queen in no time, so I am winning in many ways. And I chose the easiest one, meaning that instead of trying to catch the queen in some variations, I just decided to trade it, because I knew that f-pawn will guarantee me a win. So my opponent does not have anything else to do, so he took my queen, I took back. He then decided to drop back the bishop, but I am simply winning. Like, I don't even have to give that much of a commentary as of now. My opponent tried to sacrifice the knight for anything, but it's not just nothing. Like, I can simply accept it. I am crashing still. So yeah, within the next 2 moves I just won the game. My opponent finally resigned at this point, and I was more than happy with such a win. Let's see if the computer approves it. So let's see the review. Hopefully it will be over 90, because I know I did my best to play a good game. Yes, 91. Perhaps I had some better moves along the way, especially when e3 move was played and there were a lot of things to consider. But all in all, I would say that this game was an amazing one from my perspective. I had a lot of fun playing it, especially with those pawn pushes. And yeah, I hope to implement this variation more often in the future, because it's objectively good. It's practically amazing to have fun with. So I would highly recommend you guys to also figure out this g5 move as a move to consider for your repertoire. And yeah, with that in mind, I am leaving you here. Thank you all for watching. If you had as much fun as myself when playing the game, please remember to leave a like and subscription for more games to come. Thank you all for watching. We'll see each other tomorrow. Bye bye.